The most controversial governor in Texas history was James E. "Pa" Ferguson. He emerged in 1914 as a forceful anti-prohibitionist Democrat, running as the only wet candidate in a crowded primary field dominated by prohibition supporters. In a one-party state where the Democratic primary essentially determined the governorship, Ferguson's 55% primary victory ensured his election. A self-made banker from Temple, he appealed to both conservative and progressive Democrats. He opposed statewide prohibition and women's suffrage, yet promised, and initially delivered, aid to farmers and rural schools. Ferguson's first term brought a flurry of reforms. The legislature passed measures improving working conditions and enacting new labor protections, and it approved a farm tenant law limiting rents to 1/4 of cotton and 1/3 of grain. Though widely supported in both chambers, the law was weakly enforced and later struck down as unconstitutional in 1921. His administration also expanded support for education. New normal schools were authorized, colleges began long-delayed building programs, and state aid reached rural districts. A tentative compulsory attendance law was adopted, and spending across state agencies rose significantly, pushing the ad valorem tax rate from 12.5 cents to 30 cents. At the same time, the prison system grew its landholdings and, boosted by wartime commodity prices, became self-sustaining and even profitable. Yet even before he took office, Ferguson revealed his inclination to wield state appointments as political spoils. His attempt to replace Ernest Winkler, a respected historian and librarian, with an untrained political supporter, provoked fierce resistance from scholars, librarians, civic groups, and the State Library and Historical Commission, who ultimately preserved Winkler's position. This controversy foreshadowed Ferguson's increasingly combative relationship with Texas's academic establishment. By 1916, Ferguson seemed assured of re-election. Prohibitionists, unable to unite behind a prominent candidate, nominated Charles H. Morris, an obscure figure who posed little threat. Ferguson won by roughly 60,000 votes, though the race exposed growing unease about his administration. His second term produced fewer legislative achievements, aside from creating the Highway Department, but much greater political turmoil. Ferguson used his office aggressively and often self-servingly, selling pardons, pressuring businesses to purchase advertising in newspapers he controlled, and diverting public funds for questionable purposes. His most explosive conflict involved the University of Texas. Ferguson demanded the dismissal of several faculty members he considered politically hostile, including William Harding Mays, former lieutenant governor and founder of the university's School of Journalism. When the regents refused, he retaliated by vetoing nearly the entire university budget. The veto sparked statewide outrage and revived earlier accusations of financial misconduct. In 1917, as wartime tension and political frustration mounted, a Travis County grand jury indicted Ferguson on 9 counts, including misapplication of public funds, embezzlement, and the diversion of special funds. Undeterred, Ferguson announced his candidacy for a third term, even as new allegations circulated. The Speaker of the House called a special legislative session of doubtful legality to consider impeachment. Ferguson eliminated any procedural uncertainty by issuing his own call for the legislature to reconvene, ostensibly to appropriate funds for the university. Once assembled, the House moved swiftly. After a detailed investigation, it drafted 21 articles of impeachment. The Senate, sitting as a high court of impeachment, conducted a 3-week trial before convicting Ferguson on 10 charges. 5 involved the misapplication of public funds. 3 arose from his vendetta against the University of Texas. 1 accused him of failing to enforce banking laws, and 1 charged that he had accepted $156,500 in cash from a secret source, an act not explicitly illegal, but widely viewed as deeply improper. The Senate voted 25-3 to remove him from office and permanently bar him from holding any office of honor, trust, or profit in Texas. Ferguson denounced the proceedings as a kangaroo court and resigned the day before the Senate formally announced its verdict, later arguing that the judgment no longer applied to him. The courts rejected his claim and upheld both his removal and disqualification. Even so, impeachment did not silence him politically. Ferguson ran again for governor in 1918, but lost to William P. Hobby, then mounted an unsuccessful presidential campaign on the American Party ticket in 1920, and lost another race for the US Senate in 1922. Despite his dramatic fall from power, Ferguson remained a deeply polarizing figure, a man who mixed populist rhetoric and genuine reform with personal vendettas, abuses of authority, and one of the most consequential impeachment scandals in Texas history.